What's up, everyone? Good morning. I was going through, as I'm sure everybody else is, and man, there is just so much that's hilarious about the upcoming NFL draft and the NFL, as always, and especially when it comes to our 49ers, which are never dull. Debo Samuel moving on, Brandon Ayuk rumors heating up. Every single player in free agency, every player in the draft is a target that they should go after. I absolutely love this season. I'm a part of it, just like everybody else. But there was definitely some names being thrown around, and I feel like I couldn't respond to all of them in tweets and without sounding like a raging lunatic. So I just had to go live here as somebody that watches a ton of college football, way too much college football. I watch it, bet on it, play DFS and fantasy college football. I'd like to think I know these guys pretty well. And so I'm going to start going through some different position groups periodically here and just breaking down some of not only the best players, but guys that I think after watching this team forever and every single play the last decade or so, guys I think that would fit this Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh team. So starting with the wide receiver, because that's the one over the last week or so that has really just been, again, every player is a fit. Go after this guy. Oh, let's go after that guy. John Lynch saying we want to get younger and cheaper. So we got to move off Debo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. And then all of a sudden, Devontae Adams should be a 49er. It's like, that's literally the opposite of what they're saying here, guys. So talking about the draft specifically, I don't know, there's 10 guys, 10 guys or so that I put down that I think would be really good fits for Kyle Shanahan in this offense if you are replacing not only Debo Samuel, but if you do look to replace Brandon Ayuk as well. I think the one thing to keep in mind as well, you got to remember who this offense and what this offense is, right? This is a timing-based offense. This is an offense that is going to create matchups and create lanes for Brock Purdy to hit him on time. What does that require? Well, that requires guys who can beat man coverage. That requires guys that are precise route runners. That requires guys that understand zone and they can find the holes and sit in the holes or know when to take off, know when to break off, all those kinds of things. It's a very complex offense. You can't just put anybody out there. You can't put guys that just are freelancing, guys that don't understand route concepts. Some of these guys are really good college receivers, and hell, they might be good pro receivers, but I don't think the guy that just, runs 9 routes and beats guys physically in college is really a fit for this offense. I mean, when do the Niners ever do that, right? So I'm not saying it can't happen, but there's a few guys that I think fit a little bit more of the profile of, more of like a Brandon Ayuk, a Jawan Jennings, a Ricky Pearsall, who are quick man beaters. They can really get off man coverage. They run complex offenses. And I think that they would be really good additions to this team, whether or not they move off Ayuk. And starting at the top here, the two guys that I think are first round talents, in my opinion, very easily are Matthew Golden and Luther Burden. Both guys are really polished route runners. They run a lot more in that like 10 to 20 yard range, which is right where the Niners want to be typically in their offense. They're not downfield home run, hitters. Matthew Golden actually is, but that's not the only thing he can do. So guess what I'm getting at? Tet McMillan, that's kind of his game, right? He is a strider. Once he gets open, whether it's a crossing route, whether it's a deep route, that's fine, but he's more of a physical mismatch. In my opinion, McMillan is a lot more like a Mike Evans, right? Fantastic player, awesome player, Hall of Fame player, but Kyle Shanahan doesn't really use that type of player. And maybe he would adjust if he had him, but based on what you've seen over the last 7-8 years, I think Matthew Golden and Luther Burden, if you're looking for a receiver early on in the draft, seem to be a little bit more of a perfect fit, in my opinion. Looking a little bit more in that like second to third round range, guys that I really like, Trey Harris, 6'2" or 6'1", 6'2". The guy's dominated at Ole Miss in the SEC for 2 years. He was on a pretty historic pace, to be totally honest with you, this last year until he got banged up and hurt. Which is why I think he slipped a little bit. I truly think if Harris doesn't get hurt in the middle of the season and continues what he was doing, we may be talking about Trey Harris as round 1 for sure, but maybe the top receiver in this class. I think Trey Harris is awesome. And I think he'd be a great, great receiver complement to Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings in this offense. Next up, I got Alec Aomanor, Stanford receiver. He's a bit raw, but he has run a pro-style offense at Stanford. We've seen him absolutely nuke in certain spots, and so you know you've got it in there. He absolutely rocked and took it to Travis Hunter. I think it was 2 years ago when Stanford went to Colorado. I mean, he was completely unguardable and unstoppable. So he's got big play upside. It's funny. Savion Williams is the guy, and I was talking to my buddy Jim about this, who also runs the show here. He's exciting, man. I think Savion Williams is a really dynamic player. To me, when you watch him play, I see Cordell Patterson. So if that's kind of what you're looking for, yeah, he's an explosive, dynamic playmaker. He is a highlight reel player, but he is not a route runner in terms of like being able to run the entire tree and be a precise guy. He is a guy you're going to find creative ways to get the ball to, right? You're going to give him a few handoffs. You're going to get him a few easy catches, let him run. You're going to get him kick returns, punt returns. Like, you're going to find different creative ways to get him the ball. So he's a Cordell Patterson, Tavon Austin type of player. Who knows? Maybe he could develop into like a precise route runner and a true like X or Z receiver, but that's not what he is today. His countermate, however, Jack Beck, is a little bit more of a precise route runner, receiver. I'm not going to be shocked when the team falls in love with Jack Beck. Just be totally honest with you. This is a guy who is at LSU with guys like Kyron Lacey, guys like Malik Neighbors, and he was the one who led the team in receptions that year. So this is a guy who's played at the highest level, played for multiple schools. He's obviously suffered through that tragedy for his brother a couple months ago on New Year's Day. So this is a guy who's playing on it with a chip on his shoulder. He catches everything, tough player. I could see them again falling in love with Jack Beck quite a bit. Next up, we've got the two Iowa State guys in the middle rounds, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel. I don't know how far these guys are going to move up now. Both of them tested really well, which was kind of expected. Higgins is the bigger receiver. He's like 6'3", 6'4", over 200 pounds. Noel is the smaller, kind of speedy guy. But both guys are really damn good. And I would not be shocked to see, again, this team kind of fall in love with these guys, get a little bit of Cyclone connection with Brock Purdy. That would be interesting. Next up, Torrey Horton, Colorado State. I feel like this guy's been playing at Colorado State for like 12 years now. He's a very polished, mature type receiver. He's a guy I think would step in kind of day one and produce. He would understand the offense. He would understand, concepts, zone, man. He can get off both. I think Torrey Horton's a really good, 4th, 5th round receiver is my guess. But who knows? He ran really well the other day at the combine. I think he was in the 4.4 range or low 4.5s, which is great for him. And I could see them really liking Torrey Horton as he plays got a little bit of that dog in him. Will Shepard, another guy, he was at, I think, Vanderbilt and then transferred to Colorado this last year. Big receiver. He's a separator. He's a route runner. He's a tough player. He's a guy with a large wingspan. I think he'd be like a perfect guy to get in there and start kind of as an understudy under Juwan Jennings. I could see them falling quite a bit in love with him. And the next guy I'll kind of touch on that I think, you guys should go back and take a look at a little bit more. He's a complete X factor. I have no idea what his status is off the field. He had some pretty bad charges against him after the season. And based on what those charges were, I'll let you guys go deep dive into what those are. I would be very surprised if the Yorks allow the 49ers to draft this guy. But if he slips into that 4th, 5th, 6th round, even 7th undrafted potentially, Kyron Lacey, another guy who could potentially have been a 1st, 2nd round talent at LSU. He had an absurd season again, kind of stepping in to fill that void left by Malik Neighbors last year. He's not Malik Neighbors, but he is damn good. So again, if you're looking for a guy who can step in and replace younger, cheaper, based on what John Lynch had just said from his mouth, I think you got to consider the guy. Like, again, he might be a terrible person. That's not me up to me to decide. That's something they have to decide. They're the ones, signing his game checks Again, I don't know what the status is legally for Kyron Lacy, but if you get him in the building and you like the kid, and maybe it was a mistake, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. I'm not making any judgments. He could be the worst human alive. Then cross him off your board. All I'm saying is this is a guy who is wildly talented, and he would fit exactly what the Niners are trying to do. And his stock is obviously going to drop because of off the field concerns. So if you go through that full check, that full A to Z workup, you think, hey, we're okay with this. I think you could get a major steal with Kyron Lacy later in this draft. I think someone's going to take a shot on him, depending on how his legal situation works out. But those are kind of 10 guys that I think, based on the 100,000 names that I see thrown around on Twitter, that I think would be a really good fit for the 49ers, that I think would fit this offense. I think they all do really well what Kyle likes to see in receivers. And I think they need to get away a little bit from that gadget Debo, as I think it was maybe Jordan Elliott said. Debo's a one-off, right? Like, you can't really replace him, in my opinion, of what he did, because it was such a unique player. Go and find man beaters who can run the offense for Brock Purdy, can beat man-to-man press, can find the voids in zone, can be where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there, and they'll fit this offense. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe if you haven't already. Go back, do your deep dive, and we'll go through some more positions at another time. Thanks, guys.